G'day everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the invoicing system in Simply Business. We've taken the time to put in our sales leads. We've sent out quotes. Those quotes have been accepted. We created the project. We've created tasks. We've timesheeted against those tasks. We've delivered to the customer. We've supported the customer through any issues that they had. And now it's time for a fairly important part of the process, which is getting paid. So when we come into the invoicing app, we have the ability to create a new invoice. We can include any archived invoices in the list, and we can search for an invoice. When we click new invoice, the first thing that happens is the system will generate an invoice number for us based on the prefix that we set up in settings. Now, since this is our first invoice, it's prefixed it with INV- and then 001. We then select the customer that we want to invoice. In this case, we're going to invoice ABC Mowers. And we give it a reference, and since this is for the logo design, we'll just call it logo. We created our invoice terms in settings, and we set 1 to 14 days. We're going to set the invoicing date to today, and we're going to say the due date is in 2 weeks. And then I'm just going to save that invoice, and we get some new options now that the invoice has been created. We can add an item, and we can create items from billable tasks. So I can simply click add item and start typing. So this is an item, and it can be, we can have 2 of them at $10 each, and now we have a total of $20 for this invoice. Now, of course, I don't need to go in and add all these items manually, even if I was getting the information from reports, because we have this option here called create item from billable tasks. So we'll just delete this item, and then what we'll do is we'll create item from these billable tasks. Now, when I click this button, some more options come up. The first thing I can do is get the billable tasks from this week, but I actually want to get the billable tasks from this month. I can choose how to group the tasks, and I'll come back to that in 1 second, and I can limit the tasks from a specific project. But in this case, there is only one project for ABC Mower, so I don't need to select that, although if I do, it will make no difference, so I'll just select it now. So now the main thing we want to do is work out how we want the items to appear on our invoice. And there's 4 ways that you can group your tasks on an invoice. The first option is to have 1 invoice item per task. So what that will do is take every task that we've worked on for this project and individually list them as line items on the invoice. So if I choose that option and hit create items, what we'll see is I've got 4 items or 4 tasks, and those 4 tasks have been created into 4 line items on the invoice. We've got the design option 2, which was 3 hours at $300 an hour, $900 total. Design option 1, 3.45 hours at $100 an hour. Design option 3, 2 hours at $300 an hour. And then the logo design on-site initial consultation, which was a fixed fee item that we created, which is just 1. That's not how many hours it was spent, it's just 1 item at $200, and that's $200 there. So we have a total here of $2,045 that we can invoice to ABC Mowers. Now, I might not want to show every single task as an individual line item, showing how much time and money therefore each item was worth. I might want to group them together. So we can do that. First of all, I'll just delete all these items. So the next option we have is to group them by their task group. So I'll do that, and I'll click create items. And what we'll see here is that option 2 and 3 have been grouped together under the design task group. So we have 1 line item here, which is a total of 5 hours at $300 an hour. So it's $1,500 for that item. Then we have design and then design option 1. Now these are both design. The task group is the same, but the reason Simply Business has separated them out is because the unit price is different. We're charging a different hourly rate, so we can't group them together because they're a different hourly rate. This actually was done by the intern who's being charged at a much lower rate. Our main designers are charged out at $300 an hour, but our intern is only $100 an hour, and he took 3.45 hours to complete this task, so that's $345. And then we have our on-site task group here, which has 1 task in it, initial consultation, and that appears as its own line item again, because 1, it's not the same as the design task, and it's also a different rate anyway, so it's going to appear separately. Now I'll remove these items again. So now we'll take a look at the third option here, which is to group all of the tasks by project. So if you're using the same hourly rate for every task in a project, then all of those tasks will appear in 1 single line item for that project. But when I click create items, what we'll see is this is exactly the same as before when we were grouping by task group. And the reason for that, again, is because of the unit price. Because they're all different, they appear as different line items. So we're not going to get any advantage by grouping them by project. And obviously, we're also not going to get any benefit by grouping them all by customer for two reasons. One, we only have one project. So if we had multiple projects and they were all the same hourly rate for every task across all of those projects, then they would all group together in one single item for that customer if we were grouping by customer. But in this case, we only have one project, so that's not going to give us any advantage. And we also have these separate individual unit prices, which separates out the line items as well. Now, because of all of that explanation, it seems like it takes a while to create an invoice, but it's actually very quick. All I need to do is create the invoice, select create from billable tasks, choose what time frame, whether it's this week or this month, choose how I want to group the tasks and click create, and then we're done. The invoice is created. It's very, very simple. You can create an invoice in less than 30 seconds. Once I've created the invoice, I can go back to the list and it will be in the draft state. So if I decide that that invoice amount is not enough to bill the client, I know there's going to be some further work coming up and I'm going to add more to it over time, then I can just leave that in the draft state. I can come back another time and I can go ahead and add items to it. And what will happen is if I go and create items from billable tasks and choose this month and then group by whatever group, it doesn't really matter. Let's just choose the task group and then click create items. Nothing will actually happen because there are no new items to add. Simpli Business will check against any items that we've already added to the invoice and not add them again. So you don't have to worry about double adding tasks to an invoice if they've already been invoiced. So once I'm happy with my invoice and I do want to send it out to the customer, I can go down to actions and approve this invoice. Are you sure you want to approve it? Yes. And so this is now an approved invoice. I can go back to the list and I'll see now that that's approved. And if I open it up again, I can go to actions and I can revert it to draft if I want to make changes, or I can send the invoice. So I'm going to just send this invoice to demo@simpli.business. There's a default message here which you can change. It just says, "Hi James." James is the billable contact for ABC mowers. Please find below the link to the invoice. They click the link and then they can make their payment. I can send myself a copy if I want to receive a copy of this invoice, and I can send that off. But before I do that and send this off, I just want to have a look at what the invoice is going to look like, what the customer is going to see, and I can do that in the preview tab here. So I can see here we have the company logo. I can see all our company information here is correct. I can see ABC Mowers information here is correct, the invoice number, our reference, the date, the due date, and then all the items, the total, the tax that's been added, and then the full total. And then we have our terms that we've selected, which we set up in settings, which is please pay within 14 days with our bank account information at the bottom so they can make payment. So everything there looks good. So I can go back to the invoice. I can go ahead to the send invoice option and I can send that off. So now the invoice has been sent, the status has changed to sent. And I have one more option here, which is I can then mark this as paid. So once payment comes in for this invoice, I can mark it as paid and then that invoice is done. Now, if you have a Xero account and in settings you've connected Simpli Business to your Xero account, then there's a slight change in the way that the system processes the invoice. And that is instead of sending the email off to the customer so that they can look at the invoice and make payment, there's an option here under actions called send to Xero. So when you click that button, Simpli Business will take the invoice and send it directly to Xero, and you'll find it there where you can handle all of your payments and processing. And once it's marked as paid in Xero, it will feed back into Simpli Business automatically and mark as paid in Simpli Business. And then once that's happened and you come back to your invoice list here, you'll see the status has been paid. So you can see the invoicing system in Simpli Business is very simple, but very powerful. It pulls together all the information relevant to generate an invoice, creates an invoice within a few seconds, and then you can send it off. You can do all of your invoicing in just a few minutes in Simpli Business. It really saves you a lot of time.